Welcome to our deep dive into The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, yes.
We're going straight to the source with this one,
Okay.
diving right into excerpts from the novel itself to really get a good feel for what makes Atwood's dystopian world so chillingly relevant, even decades after it was written.
It really is incredible how this book manages to be both a gripping story and, like, this super sharp commentary on society all at the same time.
Yeah.
And you know what's really striking to me?
What's that?
It's just how carefully Atwood builds this world.
Right.
Gilead,
Yeah.
where fertile women are forced into sexual servitude as a way to combat a declining birth rate.
It's a world that feels both familiar and utterly alien.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
You see these echoes of real-world anxieties about authoritarianism and the control of women's bodies. But then she takes those fears to this extreme, almost surreal level.
Absolutely. And one of the ways she does that is through the language of Gilead.
Oh, interesting.
This isn't just a totalitarian regime.
Okay.
It's a regime obsessed with controlling thought itself.
Really?
Just think about some of the terms they use.
Okay.
Handmaid, commander, unbaby.
Wow.
These words are like designed to strip away individuality and enforce conformity.
It's like she's saying that control over language is the first step towards controlling people's minds.
Exactly.
You take away their words, you take away their ability to think for themselves.
That's it. And it's not even just the obvious brutal terms like that.
Right.
It's also the way seemingly harmless phrases like freedom to and freedom from
are
twisted to justify oppression.
It's just so...
And Lydia drills this into the Handmaids, claiming that true freedom comes from relinquishing control.
Right.
From submitting to Gilead's will.
Chilling, right?
It's crazy.
And it's within this suffocating environment that we first meet Offred, our narrator, through her fragmented memories and incredibly insightful inner monologue. We get this really intimate look at the horrors of daily life in Gilead.
What I find interesting about Offred is that she's not your typical heroic figure.
Yeah.
She's not leading a rebellion or plotting a grand escape or anything like that. Her resistance is much more internal, much more subtle.
Like when she hoards that bit of butter in her room.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like such a small thing.
Right.
But in the context of Gilead, it's almost a radical act.
It totally is.
Yeah.
It's this tiny act of defiance.
Yes.
A way of claiming a sliver of autonomy in a world where she's been stripped of everything.
It's so powerful.
It is.
And it speaks to this deeper human need for connection,
right,
for sensory pleasure.
Yes.
Even in the face of overwhelming oppression.
Exactly. And then there's that other chilling detail about her room.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
No chandelier, no hooks, nothing to tie a rope to.
Yeah.
It's a constant reminder of the ever-present threat of suicide.
Such a heavy detail.
Yeah, it's a chilling reminder of how Gilead seeks to control not only women's bodies, but also their minds and spirits, leaving them with very little choice, but utter submission or self-annihilation.
It's bleak.
It is.
But even within those constraints, you see these glimmers of hope, of rebellion.
Totally.
Think about that Latin phrase she finds scratched into her cupboard.
Oh, right.
No light to bastards, cupperandorum.
Yeah.
Let the bastards grind you down.
It's such a powerful line.
It is.
It's a message from the past.
Yeah.
A connection to a time before Gilead.
Right.
And it becomes this kind of talisman for Offred.
I like that.
A reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's still the potential for resistance, for hope.
It's fascinating how Atwood weaves these small acts of defiance into Offred's narrative.
It really is.
Making her struggle feel both relatable and incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And then there's Moira.
Oh, yeah, Moira.
Who represents a completely different kind of resistance.
Right. Moira's escape from the Red Center,
the
training center for handmaids,
right,
shows us that resistance can be much more overt.
Oh, okay.
More active.
Interesting.
Even in the horrifying underworld of Jezebel's,
gosh, yes,
a brothel for the commanders,
yeah,
she maintains this cynical resilience, refusing to be completely broken by the system.
It's like these two women represent two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
Two different ways of surviving within this oppressive regime.
Exactly.
Offred's resistance is quiet, internal. Moira's is more outward, more rebellious.
I see that.
And the contrast between them, the way they cope with the horrors they face, adds another layer of depth to their relationship and to the novel as a whole.
I agree.
It makes you think about the different ways people might react to such extreme extreme circumstances, the choices they might make to survive.
Exactly. And this is where Atwood's exploration of female relationships within Gilead becomes really interesting.
How so?
Well, consider the complex dynamic between Offred and Serena Joy, the commander's wife.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You have this power struggle playing out between them, this strange mix of resentment and empathy.
Right.
Especially given that Serena Joy had a hand in creating the very system that oppresses her.
I know, that's wild.
It's like, even under such an oppressive system, human nature, with all its contradictions, persists.
It really does.
We see this in the way Offred observes and interacts with those around her, trying to decipher their motives, their loyalties, their hidden desires.
It's like she's constantly trying to read between the lines, trying to understand the unspoken rules of this new world.
Exactly. And this constant state of uncertainty, this need to decipher the subtext of every interaction, adds to the psychological tension of the novel.
Absolutely.
It makes you, the reader, feel just as off balance and on edge as Offred.
You really do feel that.
So we've got this meticulously constructed world, this incredibly compelling narrator, and this constant sense of underlying tension.
Right.
What's fascinating is how Atwood then uses all of these elements to explore much broader themes, themes that resonate far beyond the world of the novel itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is where The Handmaid's Tale transcends the boundaries of dystopian fiction and becomes something much more powerful.
Okay.
Much more unsettling.
I see.
And that's what we'll delve into next.
Great.
Yeah. One of the things that makes The Handmaid's Tale so enduringly relevant is its exploration of power dynamics. You know,
I see.
You see this not just in the obvious ways, like the commanders ruling over the handmaids, but also in the more subtle interactions between characters.
Yeah, it's like power seeps into every aspect of life in Gilead.
Exactly.
Right? It distorts relationships, creates these intricate webs of control and manipulation. It's not just about who has authority, but how that authority is wielded, even in the most intimate of spaces.
Exactly. Like, take the relationship between Offred and the commander, for instance.
Okay.
He's the architect of this whole oppressive system.
Right.
Yet he seeks solace in forbidden activities.
Really?
Things that represent the very freedoms he's helped to destroy.
It's almost like he's trying to recapture something he's lost. A sense of agency, of connection.
Yeah.
And he tries to do that by pulling Offred into his world.
Right.
Offering her these glimpses of the past. Scrabble, old magazines, secret rendezvous.
Which raises a really interesting question.
What's that?
Is it even possible to have genuine connection when one person holds all the power?
Right.
Can Offred truly consent to these interactions when the consequences of refusal are so dire?
It's a question that goes beyond the novel itself, right?
It is.
We see these power dynamics play out in all sorts of relationships.
Yeah.
In all sorts of contexts. And Atwood doesn't offer any easy answer.
No, she doesn't.
She just leaves you wrestling with these questions, these uncomfortable truths about the nature of power and consent.
Absolutely. And she also doesn't shy away from showing the brutal consequences of Gilead's ideology.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the scene where Offred witnesses the salvaging, the public execution of those deemed criminals by Gilead is particularly chilling.
Well, it's definitely one of the most visceral scenes in the book.
That is.
The way the handmaids are forced to participate, to channel their anger and frustration into ritualized violence.
Right.
It's just a stark reminder of how totalitarian regimes manipulate and exploit human emotions.
They do it so well.
Yeah.
And that detail about the pregnant woman.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Whose baby also dies during the execution. It just underscores the utter brutality of this regime.
Yeah.
The way it disregards human life, even innocent life.
It's moments like that which make the novel so impactful.
They really do.
You're not just reading about these atrocities. You're experiencing them alongside Offred.
Yeah.
Feeling the weight of her fear, her grief, her rage.
Exactly. And that's why the ending, with its ambiguity, is so powerful.
So powerful.
We're left wondering, did Offred even escape?
Right.
Was she recaptured?
Yeah.
Does she find any kind of freedom?
It's like Atwood is saying, okay, you've seen this world.
Right.
You've experienced its horrors.
Exactly.
Now what are you going to do about it?
It's a call to action.
Wow.
A challenge to examine our own roles in upholding or challenging oppressive systems.
It's a big question.
It is.
And it's a question that lingers long after you finish the book.
Oh, yeah.
What would you do in Offred's shoes?
It really makes you think.
It does.
And that brings us to another layer of The Handmaid's Tale that makes it so compelling.
Okay.
The historical and societal parallels.
Oh.
While Atwood wrote this novel decades ago,
yeah,
it's chilling how much it resonates with current events.
It's like she had a crystal ball or something.
I know, it's crazy.
The novel's themes of totalitarian regimes, religious extremism, and the control of women's bodies and reproductive rights are sadly not confined to the pages of fiction.
Sadly not.
We see these issues playing out in real-world headlines all the time.
All the time. And I think that's part of why this book continues to be so relevant, so widely read and discussed. It serves as a stark warning, a reminder of the dangers of complacency, of unchecked authority, of the erosion of individual liberties.
It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our own societies.
It really does.
And to ask ourselves those difficult questions. Could this happen here?
Right.
Could it happen now?
And while The Handmaid's Tale paints a pretty bleak picture of a possible future, it also offers these glimmers of hope, of resistance.
Right. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure, that even small acts of defiance can make a difference.
Absolutely.
And it highlights the power of storytelling itself.
Yes.
How it can spark conversations, challenge assumptions, and inspire us to fight for a better world.
And that's where the real power of The Handmaid's Tale lies, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just a cautionary tale.
Right.
It's a story that sparks conversation.
Oh, for sure.
That challenges us to think critically about the world around us.
It definitely doesn't let you off the hook easily.
No, it doesn't.
It leaves you with so many questions, so many things to ponder long after you've finished reading.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, what did you make of the ending? Did Offred escape Gilead?
Right.
Or was she recaptured?
We don't know for sure, and I find that so fascinating.
Me too.
I think that ambiguity is intentional.
Really?
Atwood wants us to grapple with that uncertainty, to consider the possibilities, and perhaps even imagine our own endings for Offred.
Wow.
It's like she's inviting us to become part of the story.
Right.
To continue it in our own minds. Yeah.
It also makes you think about the nature of hope, too, right? Even in the face of such overwhelming oppression, there's this sliver of possibility that maybe, just maybe, Offred found a way out.
And even if she didn't escape physically, there's the question of whether she escaped mentally, spiritually.
Right.
Did she manage to hold on to some part of herself despite Gilead's attempts to break her?
That's a good question.
It is.
It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
Absolutely.
To the power of hope even in the darkest of times.
Absolutely. And that's a message that resonates far beyond the world of the novel.
Yeah, I agree.
It reminds us that even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges, we have the capacity to resist, to fight for our own freedom, and to hold on to hope for a better future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into The Handmaid's Tale, what are some of the key takeaways that you think will stay with our listener?
You got me think.
What should they be mulling over as they go about their day?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that the fight for individual freedom, for bodily autonomy, for the right to think and speak freely, is an ongoing struggle.
It really is.
We can't afford to be complacent.
Yeah, we can't.
We need to be aware of the subtle ways in which power can be used to control and manipulate.
Right.
And we need to be willing to speak out against injustice wherever we see it.
The Handmaid's Tale is a powerful reminder that the world we live in is fragile.
It is.
That the rights and freedoms we often take for granted can be eroded if we're not vigilant.
Exactly.
But it's also a story about the power of resistance, the importance of hope, and the resilience of the human spirit.
Absolutely. And it's a story that unfortunately feels more relevant now than ever.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
We need to keep these conversations going.
Yes, we do.
To keep questioning, keep challenging, and keep fighting for a world where stories like Offred's are not reflections of reality, but cautionary tales from a past we've learned from.
I like that.
Well said.
Thank you.
We started this deep dive wanting to understand Atwood's world.
Right.
The key themes.
Yeah.
And what makes the story so captivating and enduringly relevant. And I think we've done that and so much more.
I think so, too.
We've unpacked the complexities of Gilead. Explored the nuances of power and resistance. And connected the dots between this fictional dystopia and the world around us.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
It really has.
And hopefully it sparked some new insights and questions for our listener.
Yeah.
Prompting them to think critically about the world we're creating.
Right.
The choices we make, and the future we want to build.
Absolutely. So, to our listener,
okay,
we leave you with this.
All right.
Keep those pages turning.
Yeah.
Keep those conversations going. And never stop questioning the world around you.
Good advice.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Handmaid's Tale.